Most women never realize the quiet power they hold within the heart of a man. He may seem invincible in the eyes of the world, confident in his steps, unmoved by storms. But when he meets the rare woman who touches something ancient and unshakable within him, he feels the tremor of fear. Not the fear of conflict, nor the fear of failure, but the deeper fear of losing something he knows his soul cannot easily replace. That woman becomes a mirror of his secret longings, the embodiment of the safety and mystery he never thought he would find. If a man fears losing you, it is not because of the way you look or the charm of your laughter alone. It is because you carry an energy that penetrates his defenses, silences his masks, and makes him feel exposed in a way he both craves and resists. You awaken in him what Carl Jung called the anima, the feminine imprint that stirs in a man's unconscious, the archetype of love, beauty, and deep belonging. To lose you would feel like losing not only a partner, but also a piece of his own psyche. The first hidden sign is this: he becomes restless in your silence. Most men are accustomed to silence as a refuge, a shield against the noise of the world. Yet with you, silence unsettles him. If you do not reply to his message, if you retreat into your own mystery, he feels the ground shake beneath him. He begins to wonder if your silence is a withdrawal or a test, if your absence means he has already failed. A woman who commands a man's restless attention in her quietness is a woman he secretly fears to lose. Because deep down, he knows that silence can speak louder than words, and he knows that if you were ever to walk away, you would do so without shouting, without announcing, simply by disappearing like a ghost that leaves a permanent echo in his memory. The second hidden sign is this: he guards your opinion like a fragile secret. A man who fears losing you will not take your words lightly. He may never say it aloud, but your approval becomes a compass he cannot ignore. He notices the way you look at him when he speaks, the subtle shift of your tone, the way your eyes soften or harden with each choice he makes. If he feels you disapprove, he is unsettled. If he feels your admiration, he is lifted. Your perception of him carries more weight than any applause he receives from the world. This is because you are not just another voice in the crowd. You are the voice that reaches his shadow and his pride alike. And he knows that if he loses the light of your eyes, the reflection of his better self may fade with it. The third hidden sign is this: he resists but cannot escape the pull of vulnerability around you. Most men are trained by life to armor their emotions, to carry strength like a weapon and hide weakness like a shameful wound. But when he is with you, he slips. He begins to share fragments of his inner world he would never reveal to others. The story of his failures, the memory of his father's silence, the dream he keeps buried because it feels too fragile to expose. These moments may seem fleeting, yet they are revelations. For a man to offer you his vulnerability is to place his pride in your hands. He may cover it with humor or downplay it as if it means nothing, but secretly it means everything. It is his soul whispering, "Do not leave me exposed if you walk away." And yet here lies the paradox. The more he fears losing you, the more he may test the boundaries of your love. He may withdraw, disappear for a day, or act indifferent, not because he does not care, but because he is measuring the depth of your tether. This is the hidden psychology of attachment, the dance between closeness and distance, obsession and withdrawal. It is the unconscious testing of whether the bond will survive absence, whether you will still remain when he tries to vanish. This testing is not always malicious, it is often instinctive. In attachment theory, it is the protest of a fearful heart, the tug of war between desire and dread. He both wants to hold you and to see if you will hold him without being asked. If you notice this dance, do not be deceived by the mask of detachment. A man who tests in silence often fears in silence too. So if you have ever felt a man's restless energy when you retreat into quiet, if you have sensed the trembling weight he places upon your opinion, if you have caught him exposing the tender cracks in his armor only to later withdraw, you may be the woman he secretly fears to lose. This fear is not weakness, it is a recognition of your rarity. For in you, he sees not only the woman before him, but the archetypal feminine that dwells in every man's dream. The muse, the lover, the guide, the one whose loss would echo through his life like a shadow he could never outrun.
The fourth hidden sign is this: his anger toward you carries more sorrow than rage. When a man fears losing you, his conflicts with you reveal something far deeper than irritation. His sharp words, his sudden withdrawal, even his cold silence, they are not born of indifference, but of desperation. Notice the difference. When a man truly does not care, his anger evaporates into nothingness, like smoke disappearing into the air. But when you matter, his anger lingers, thick with grief, as though every disagreement carries the terrifying possibility that you might slip beyond his reach. This is where the paradox of male psychology becomes most visible. Outwardly, he may posture as though nothing shakes him, but inwardly he trembles with the knowledge that you hold a power no other woman has ever carried. Jung wrote that what a man projects onto the woman he loves is not her alone, but the inner goddess of his soul, the anima, clothed in her form. That projection magnifies everything. Your smile becomes salvation, your disappointment becomes destruction, and your withdrawal becomes unbearable exile. Have you noticed how his eyes follow you after a fight, even when he tries to look away? Have you felt the tension in his silence, a silence that feels less like distance and more like a plea he cannot voice? This is the anger of a man who fears your absence. It is not about the argument at hand. It is about the primal terror that you might decide he is not enough, that you might withdraw your presence, and that his world would dim without you. The fifth hidden sign is this: he begins to shape his future with your shadow in it. A man who secretly fears losing you cannot help but weave you into the fabric of his plans. At first, it is subtle, a casual mention of a place he wants to visit, followed by the quiet, "You'd love it there," or the way he notices a home, a city, a dream, and instinctively imagines you beside him. These hints are not just idle talk. They are the unconscious whispers of a man who has already bound his vision of the future to the thought of you. Yet notice carefully, he will rarely announce this directly. Instead, it appears in fragments, in scattered seeds. His fear of losing you makes him cautious, for he knows that confessing too much too soon could expose him to rejection. So he cloaks it in half-jokes, passing remarks, or simple observations. But behind it lies a truth he cannot escape. The thought of you not being in his tomorrow unsettles him more than the uncertainty of any dream. This fear-driven attachment can be intoxicating, but it can also become dangerous if left unbalanced. A man who secretly fears losing you may sometimes attempt to bind you through invisible strings, subtle guilt, unspoken expectations, or emotional withdrawal designed to pull you closer. This is not always intentional cruelty. Often it is the desperate survival strategy of a man whose heart has awakened to something he does not know how to protect. And here, feminine wisdom becomes essential. You must understand the difference between a man who values you with reverence and a man who clings to you with fear. One honors your freedom, the other tries to possess it. One sees your power and stands in awe, the other seeks to contain it, lest your wings carry you away. And so you must walk the delicate line of compassion and boundaries, for your worth is not measured by his fear, but by the radiance you carry, whether he trembles or not. Some women, sensing this fear in a man, begin to shrink themselves, becoming careful not to provoke it, careful not to shake his fragile balance. But this is not the path of true feminine power. The woman who is feared to be lost must not betray her own essence to soothe his insecurities. For the gift you bring to a man's life is not in how much you protect him from his fears, but in how much you remain fully yourself, radiant and untamed. So when you notice these 5 signs, the restlessness in your silence, the weight he gives to your opinion, the vulnerability he cannot help but show, the sorrow woven into his anger, and the way he quietly envisions you in his future, know that you have touched something sacred within him. You have become more than a companion. You have become the archetype he secretly worships, and the absence he cannot imagine to lose. But here is the mystery. The man who fears losing you will often mask that fear with indifference. He may pretend he does not notice your absence, act as if he does not need your approval, conceal the depth of his sorrow, and laugh off his visions of the future. This is his final defense, to hide from you what is most vulnerable within him. And yet, if you look closer, if you read between his gestures and his silences, you will see the truth written in every hesitation. You are the one he fears to lose.
The fear of losing you is not a shallow fear, nor is it the fear of loneliness that so many men carry quietly in their bones. It is a deeper fear, the kind that unsettles his very sense of identity. Because when a man encounters the woman who awakens him, she does not just enter his life, she rewrites his narrative. She becomes the chapter that cannot be skipped, the thread that binds his story together. And somewhere inside, he knows that if she were gone, the entire tapestry would unravel. This is why he hesitates when you turn away. He may not beg, he may not plead in words, but his energy lingers around you like a storm cloud that refuses to pass. He checks your last message twice. He replays your laughter in his mind. He notices the absence of your presence, the way one notices the absence of air. For a man who secretly fears losing you, separation is not just distance, it is suffocation. Here, psychology reveals a hidden truth. Men who deeply fear loss often cloak their fear beneath control or withdrawal. Attachment theory calls it the protest of the anxious heart. Instead of openly confessing, "I am terrified to lose you," he may retreat, pulling away so that you will chase, or asserting control so that you will stay. To you, this can feel confusing, even contradictory, as if he both longs for closeness and pushes it away. Yet beneath this paradox lies one simple reality. The deeper the bond, the deeper the fear. This is where feminine wisdom becomes the guiding light, because the question is not whether a man fears losing you, but how you choose to respond to that fear. Will you shrink into reassurance, constantly soothing his doubts until you are drained? Or will you stand as the woman who holds her boundaries like a queen, allowing him to face his shadows without diminishing your own light? Carl Jung often spoke of the confrontation with the shadow, the hidden, unacknowledged parts of ourselves that surface when love awakens us. For a man, the woman he fears to lose becomes the mirror of his shadow. She reflects his longing, his need, his dependence, and his vulnerability. It is not always comfortable, but it is always transformative. Because to fear losing her is to recognize, perhaps for the first time, how much power love holds over him. Have you noticed the way he circles back after pulling away, as though distance only sharpens his hunger? Have you felt the contradiction of his silence, filled with unsent messages and unspoken pleas? These are not random behaviors, they are the footprints of fear. For even in retreat, he cannot let go. Even in silence, he is tethered. His detachment is not liberation. It is the way he tests whether the bond can endure the weight of his shadow. This is why some men become obsessive. They may scroll through your photos late at night, replay old conversations, or reappear suddenly after weeks of absence. These behaviors are not signs of mere attraction. They are signs of psychic attachment.
He is haunted by you, and he cannot detach without tearing something vital from within himself. And yet this fear is not always destructive. Properly held, it becomes a source of reverence. A man who truly fears losing you begins to honor you in ways he never thought possible. He listens more intently. He respects your silence as much as your words. And he begins to shape himself into the kind of man who could deserve you. Because his fear is not only about possession, it is about reverence for the rarity you represent. But you must be careful, for there is a difference between reverence and desperation. Reverence makes him rise. Desperation makes him pull you down. One draws you into love's highest potential, the other traps you in its shadow. The woman who understands this difference can hold her power with grace. She does not become the rescuer of a man's insecurities, nor does she shrink to keep his fear at bay. Instead, she becomes the mirror in which he must face himself, choosing whether his fear will refine him or consume him. Some women mistake being the woman he fears to lose as the ultimate goal of love, but the truth is deeper. To be feared lost is not the destination, it is the beginning of transformation. His fear must evolve into respect, into devotion, into conscious love. Otherwise, fear alone can turn love into a prison. So the hidden question for you is this: will you allow his fear to bind you, or will you let it reveal your worth? For you are not meant to be clutched desperately, but cherished freely. And the man who truly fears losing you will eventually learn that the only way to keep you is not through control, not through silence, not through endless tests, but through the courage to love you with open hands. Because in the end, the woman a man secretly fears to lose is not the one who bends to his insecurities. It is the one who remains whole, radiant, untamed, and unafraid of walking away if love no longer honors her essence.
The man who secretly fears losing you lives in a silent paradox. On the surface, he may appear calm, even indifferent, as though your absence would not shake him. But beneath that still mask lies a restless current, a tide that pulls him toward you even when he pretends to resist. This duality is not weakness. It is the raw expression of how love unsettles even the strongest. For the presence of a woman who awakens him becomes both his sanctuary and his greatest vulnerability. This duality often manifests in subtle ways. He may grow impatient when you are late, not because of the passing minutes, but because every moment without you amplifies the dread of distance. He may bristle when you give attention to others, not because he doubts your loyalty, but because he fears being replaced. His mind races with unspoken questions. Does she see me? Am I enough? Could she walk away and never look back? These are not the questions of a man indifferent to your presence. They are the whispers of a soul afraid of losing its anchor. Here lies the truth most women overlook. Fear of loss is not born in a man's weakness, but in his recognition of your rarity. He has met countless faces, but only yours unsettles his balance. He has experienced fleeting desire, but only with you does desire become devotion. Devotion shadowed by the terror that it could all vanish. Jung would say that you have awakened his anima, the archetype of the eternal feminine dwelling in his unconscious. To lose you would feel like losing not only a woman, but a piece of his very psyche. This explains why his fear is not logical, but archetypal. You are not just yourself in his eyes. You are every dream of love he has ever carried, every whisper of comfort he never received, every fragment of beauty he longed for without words. And so he oscillates.
One moment he is warm, attentive, adoring. The next, he is distant, testing, withdrawn. You may wonder if this inconsistency is proof of a lack of love, but often it is proof of its depth. His distance is not rejection, it is defense. For when a man fears losing you, the risk of closeness feels unbearable. To open fully is to risk losing fully. His heart tells him to surrender, but his shadow tells him to retreat. This is where feminine energy becomes alchemy. Your power is not in chasing his affection, nor in softening yourself to soothe his fear. Your power is in embodying the radiant stillness that does not bend to his shadows. When you remain grounded in your worth, his fear can no longer control the rhythm of the relationship. Instead, it becomes his teacher. It forces him to face himself. Have you noticed how his gaze lingers longer on you than anyone else? How his silence around you is heavier than words? How you remember the smallest details, the way you touch your hair, the way your eyes light when you speak of something you love? These are not accidents. They are signs of imprint. A man who secretly fears losing you imprints upon you like ink pressed into parchment. Even if he walks away, even if years pass, you remain etched in him. This is why breakups with such men rarely end in clean severance. He may leave, but he returns. In memories, in late-night messages, in sudden reappearances. His fear of losing you does not dissolve with time. It transforms into haunting. He may enter other relationships, but still compare, still search for the echo of what he once had in you. Because you were not simply a lover, you were the mirror of his soul. Yet here is the wisdom you must carry. Being the woman a man fears to lose does not mean you must remain bound to him. His fear is his to bear. Your role is not to rescue him from it, but to honor your own path. If his fear deepens into reverence, if it evolves into devotion and respect, then love may blossom into its highest form. But if his fear festers into control, jealousy, or possession, then you must walk away. For you were not born to be the prisoner of a man's insecurities. You were born to embody freedom, radiance, and choice. The truth is, the woman a man fears to lose is often the woman who is willing to lose him. For only the woman who is unafraid of walking away commands the kind of respect that awakens true devotion. And so the paradox turns once more. His greatest fear of losing you is born precisely because you do not fear losing him. And in that unshakable freedom lies your secret power.
The woman a man secretly fears to lose holds a presence that lingers long after she leaves the room. She is not defined by drama, nor by clinging, nor by desperate attempts to be remembered. Instead, she is remembered because she embodies what is irreplaceable, an energy, a depth, a mystery that no other can replicate. This is why his fear of losing her endures, because deep down he knows there are countless women he could be with, but only one who reaches him on the level of soul. Most men do not confess this fear aloud. They bury it, hiding it beneath ambition, distraction, or pride. But the signs are there, written into his smallest actions. When he looks at you after a long silence, it is not simply attention, it is fear disguised as longing. When he checks your reactions before finishing his words, it is not just curiosity, it is reverence wrapped in insecurity. When he lingers in your presence without speaking, it is not indifference, it is the quiet awe of a man who knows he cannot risk losing what he cannot replace. And yet, you must understand this truth. His fear is not your responsibility to carry.
The danger for many women is to confuse his fear with love, to believe that if a man trembles at the thought of losing you, it must mean his heart is ready to cherish you. But fear and love are not the same. Fear binds, love frees. Fear grasps with trembling hands. Love opens with steady devotion. Carl Jung warned that when a man projects his anima onto a woman, he does not see her clearly. Instead, he sees through her the mirror of his own longing, the goddess he has searched for in dreams. This is both beautiful and perilous, for while it elevates the woman into the realm of archetype, it can also blind him to her humanity. He may place her on a pedestal so high that he cannot meet her eye to eye. And so the woman who is feared to be lost must also be wise enough to remain grounded in her own truth, to not be consumed by the weight of his projections. This is why the most powerful women, the ones men never forget, are those who never lose themselves in his fear. They do not shrink to soothe his insecurities. They do not bend their light to make him comfortable. They stand, radiant and unshaken, allowing him to confront the shadow of his own attachment. In doing so, they become not just lovers, but catalysts. They awaken him to his deepest self. Have you noticed how the rare woman who walks away with dignity becomes unforgettable? How men return years later, still haunted by her silence, still searching for her presence in every new face? This is not because she played games or manipulated his emotions. It is because she understood the sacred truth. Her value does not come from being held onto, but from being whole within herself. She was willing to walk away, and that very willingness is what made her irreplaceable. When a man fears losing you, he is confronted with the limits of his control. He cannot demand your love. He cannot guarantee your presence. He cannot bind your spirit. And in that helplessness, he discovers whether his fear will become his downfall or his transformation. Some men crumble, retreating into bitterness or control. Others rise, learning that to love you is not to hold you captive, but to honor you in freedom. This is why your path must always return to yourself. The question is not whether he fears losing you. The question is whether you are willing to lose him if his love does not honor your soul. Because fear alone cannot sustain you. What sustains you is the recognition of your own worth, the calm knowing that you are whole with or without him. In the end, the true power lies not in being the woman a man fears to lose, but in being the woman who does not fear to lose a man. For when you embody this truth, his fear transforms into reverence, and his attachment into devotion. And if he cannot rise to meet you there, then you will walk on, radiant, untethered, leaving him with the eternal echo of what he could not keep. And so the story closes, not with his fear, but with your freedom, not with his trembling, but with your strength. For the woman who knows her worth does not chase, she chooses.
If this message spoke to something deep within you, don't let it be the last. Subscribe to this channel for more truths about love, psychology, and the mystery between men and women. Every story here is a key, and the next one may unlock something you've always felt but never named.